being in Indiana was such a gift for me because I think if you want to make an impact, Indiana is a place you can do that. You can get to know people. CEOs of some of the largest companies and small, medium companies are very approachable, and it's easier to get involved in my experience.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Melina Kennedy, CEO of the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership. CICP brings together CEOs from the corporate, academic, and philanthropy sectors to drive economic growth in Indiana. Melina and CICP oversee 5 initiatives that focus on growing key sectors of Indiana's economy through initiatives like BioCrossroads, which promotes the state's life sciences sector, and AgriNovus, which advocates for Indiana's agriculture and ag tech economy. Melina became CEO of CICP about a year and a half ago after spending 11 years as an executive at Cummins. Anyone who's been around Indianapolis for a while might also recognize Melina from her years in city government. She was deputy mayor and director of economic development under former Indianapolis Mayor Bart Peterson from 2000 to 2005 and was the Democratic candidate for mayor of Indianapolis in 2011. Before running for mayor, she was a partner at one of the city's largest law firms, then known as Baker & Daniels, now Faegre Drinker. She also spent 7 years as president of the city's Capital Improvement Board, which has been responsible for the construction, ownership, and management of some of the city's most high-profile venues from Lucas Oil Stadium to the Indiana Convention Center. While at the Capital Improvement Board, she worked with city and state leaders and Pacers Sports and Entertainment to secure a long-term commitment from the Indiana Pacers to remain in Indianapolis. Melina is originally from Chicago but has deep Hoosier roots. She has 3 degrees from IU Bloomington, including her law degree from the Maurer School of Law. Melina is engaged civically, spending 5 years chairing the IU Health Foundation's Rev event to kick off the month of May. She also served on the board of the organizing committee for the 2024 NBA All-Star Game, hosted by Indianapolis, and currently she serves on the boards of the National Bank of Indianapolis and the Indiana University Academic Medical Center. Here's our conversation. Melina, welcome to the Indiana 250 podcast.
Thanks, Nate. It's great to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Melina, you're well known in Indianapolis for your work in business, government, politics, and now nonprofit over the last 25 years. But before any of that, you were a Big Ten athlete at IU, where you were on the varsity track and field team as well as a cross-country team. Can we thank IU and your involvement in sports for drawing you here in Indiana and all the leadership positions you've held in our city and state over the last few decades?
That's great. Well, I love IU and I love Indiana, so I'm thankful that I'm here. And frankly, I reflect a lot on that. The career that I've had in Indianapolis, I think is one that would have been hard to replicate in other cities. So I feel very grateful to be here.
Was there a connection to the state of Indiana before coming to Indiana University?
Very little. I will say my older brother went there, so that certainly was a tie, but I didn't really have any other connection. And in fact, when I was a young professional here, that was one of the things that I recognized I didn't really know people. And so I wanted to get involved. I knew I wanted to get to know the city and the people and really kind of from the beginning tried to do that.
Well, we can thank IU for a lot of things, but certainly for bringing you to Indiana. Melina, you're a great example of how a young person who comes from out of the state can have a real impact here in Indiana. As most people who follow the state economy know, keeping and attracting talent is a top priority for our state. What's your pitch to young people who are considering whether to build their careers in Indiana?
I would pitch pretty hard, very sincerely. Having grown up in Chicago, which I loved, a lot of great things about it, I really do reflect that being in Indiana was such a gift for me because I think if you want to make an impact, Indiana is a place you can do that. You can get to know people. CEOs of some of the largest companies and small, medium companies are very approachable. And it's easier to get involved in my experience, at least. I often share with young people, if you want to get involved, try to do something that you're passionate about. And one of the first things I got involved in many, many years ago when I hardly knew anyone here was the Leukemia Society. And the tie for me was my dad had just passed of leukemia and I wanted to get involved. And I still have friends today. That was in the 90s that I met through that organization.
Yeah, our city is really well known for volunteerism with all the sporting history in our state. And there are so many opportunities for young people to volunteer and participate in different organizations. That's a great way for them to stand out and attract somebody's attention in terms of a new job opportunity or a board or something of that nature. And
so true.
Well, many of our listeners will be familiar with many of the CICP initiatives like BioCrossroads, TechPoint, and Connexus. But you've got a interesting new initiative at CICP called See Yourself in Indiana, or See Yourself IN. Tell us about this new initiative, Melina.
Absolutely. It's See Yourself in, IN, the pun on Indiana. And really, at the essence, it's a public awareness campaign to try to allow us to share more specifically what are the jobs, what are the industries that are guiding our state in the advanced industries with real people, real examples of the kinds of work so that Gen Zers and others can see themselves in these kinds of jobs. We found that advanced industries or life sciences, those terms don't really show you what it's all about. And so through this public awareness campaign, we're linking Gen Zers through social media and other tools to podcasts, videos, showing real examples of real work, and also then to resources such as tools directing you to training, job opportunities, and other things like that in the advanced industries.
So the background on it, is it meant to hopefully bring people who might not otherwise be thinking about Indiana to connect them to opportunities in Indiana? And how are you getting that word out in terms of outside of Indiana?
This one's primarily aimed at Hoosiers and starting at younger ages so that we really can ensure that they understand what are the opportunities. That is not exclusive of outside, but we do hope that it will result in retaining more people here because we do lose a lot of our graduates and also those who, like myself, came here for school, staying here.
Sounds like a great initiative. I mentioned BioCrossroads, which of course focuses on the region and the state's life sciences sector. We had a huge announcement just last week with Eli Lilly again committing more capital investment and more jobs to the LEAP district in Lebanon. And of course, the life science sector is also one where we see a lot of research turned into new business opportunities. While we've been focused on this a long time, it still feels like it's an opportunity for growth. Do you see more opportunities here for the growth in this sector?
Absolutely. And it doesn't feel like that long ago when BioCrossroads first came together and we really recognize that we are a mecca for life sciences. But when you fast forward now 20 years later, the opportunities today are even greater. A lot of people don't know we're the number one exporter of pharmaceuticals, the number one. We are also the only place in the world that manufactured all 3 COVID vaccinations. And so we are on the attention and the radar. Where we can really go deep, I think at this point, looking forward, is being the place for life sciences manufacturing, since we're the most intensive advanced manufacturing state in the country and our pharmaceutical export status. That really lands us on the map. And then one layer deeper in some of the areas of research and innovation where we really lead and we can be the place to solve Alzheimer's, for example, to solve obesity. These things are happening here today and it's really exciting and we should plant our flag to be the top in those areas going forward. I should also mention radiopharmaceuticals with our geographic location and our already existing base of that kind of important industry sector. We have a real opportunity to lead.
I've had the opportunity to visit a number of cities where life science sector is a big one. And one of the things that hits me is the need for lab space. I see certain cities really investing in lab space and see a lot of collaborations taking place between the private sector and the academic sector. Is that an area where you think we, as a city and state, need more of in terms of just from a facilities perspective?
We absolutely do. And 16 Tech, which is one innovation district, an important one here in Indianapolis, they have a letter of intent today for a wet lab spec space building that should be going up in the coming year or so. And that will be really important opportunity to allow shared resources for some of the startups. But that's in an ecosystem on 16 Tech campus, which is, right next to the med school, right across the bridge from IU Indianapolis, Purdue Indianapolis, right, a stone's throw from downtown. And we're really, really fortunate to have something like that right here in this city.
You mentioned 16 Tech, which feels like to me has made a lot of progress just in terms of the building out of the facilities, meaning the restaurants and just the amenities of that area. And I know there's apartments going up in that area there on the near west side of downtown. Talk about 16 Tech in general and some of the bigger things that are happening there that you see.
16 Tech, as I mentioned, really is unique and really amazing that we have this right here in our city. What's amazing about it is that it's kind of really embraced the balance of being a place for innovation and technology. So the Indiana Biosciences Research Center, IBRC, is there. 17 companies in there with wet lab space, with office space, high-tech facility infrastructure to be discovering therapeutics and major, major issues that this state, again, is leading in. But then hand in hand, we have the food hall, for example, at the AMP, where we have entrepreneurial restaurant owners who are launching their businesses with a reduced rent, a lot of them from the neighborhood area, so that we can continue to promote entrepreneurial spirit. And then just the sheer location, I truly believe there is nothing like it in the entire U.S. And I've studied a lot of other cities because it's built enough that today there's 1,000 people there on any given day. We still have land left. And to have that kind of availability across from the med school, across from IU Indy, across from Purdue Indy, downtown, at the price point that our city is relative to many other cities across the nation, I truly think in a couple of years there's going to be a lot of people who say, darn, I wish I got in while I could. But it's really exciting.
And with you mentioned IU, Indianapolis, and Purdue's efforts in Indianapolis, what do you see with those renewed efforts with each university and how that might affect that area in general?
Well, I think what the leaders of both universities did a couple of years ago, as you know, was really bold and incredibly smart to allow both of those institutions to really leverage their existing and really grow in the way that they are with this new way forward. That plus all of the activity that's happening, for example, in the research and innovation with new wet lab space going up. And I should have mentioned really important maker space and shared facilities and tools and machinery for manufacturing, all in 16 Tech. I think all of that coming together is really what we've wanted and strived for years and years through multiple administrations, to be a mecca of research innovation tied to the universities, and then allow these young people to find the best jobs here, stay in Indiana, and continue to grow the economy.
It's exciting. I think more students will have more applied opportunities, and that'll lead to good things, and hopefully more students staying in Indiana. You mentioned entrepreneurial efforts there at 16 Tech, and if I have it right, you grew up in a small business, your family business, as I understand it. Tell us a little bit about that experience and your family's business and how that might have impacted your thoughts on entrepreneurial activity.
That's such a good question. Yeah, my dad, Greek immigrant. So what do oftentimes Greek immigrants do? They open a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what my dad did. We had a family restaurant in downtown Chicago. And it was a great experience, a lot of great memories, just the family kind of hovered around the table and being there on all hours. When I reflect on it, I feel I have learned a lot that I never thought about. I will tell you one funny thing that I think a lot about is just the transformation of technology. I mean, I remember working in the restaurant when we took notes and brought them back to the kitchen for the cooks to share what was ordered, and the transition to technology where you could just type it in and it would eventually get back there. And so things, I guess when we talk about how technology is so important for productivity, I can relate back that I don't even know how we did inventory management, honestly, back then. And it was a great experience. There was some hard things. And one thing that you may or may not know, but in the end, my dad actually had some really hard financial challenges, and that was really tough.
Yeah.
And it really, it was a tough time for my family. And even now, my siblings and I, we reflect on, that was hard and we were so sad for our family, but boy, did it bring us together, and boy, did it help us recognize that things change and you got to be planning for the future, and you stick together when times are tough. And that's what we did.
Running a business, it's never very unusual that it's a straight line up, right? There are always challenges. And so I'm sure a lot of those challenges stick with you as you relate to entrepreneurs today.
100%, yeah.
And speaking on the entrepreneurial front and your current job as CEO of CICP, I know you've done some work and some research on this front in terms of where Indiana stands today and opportunities for improvement. And we know that most new jobs today come from small businesses that often can turn into the bigger businesses that become the large employers. But how today do you see CICP working in this area? And what efforts, if there are, do you see happening today to turn on young people into being an entrepreneur or starting a small business?
It's really important for our overall economic prosperity, and there are a lot of good things happening. We are regularly recognized as a state that's a great place to start a business, so that's a great place to start, and that's a testament to the the environment that we have. However, we are still lagging in terms of number of startups in terms of other states, and so we want to do more. As we've researched it, some of the key things that keep coming up is people don't know where to start in many cases. Also, just kind of getting that first customer, general awareness, and just promotion of entrepreneurialism. Those are things that CICP, I think, is uniquely positioned to really make a difference. So we're looking at initiatives around those things. And really importantly, Nate, as you understand, because you're so involved in the community, we want to link and leverage what others are doing. There's a lot of good things happening. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. And so we're collaborating with other organizations and getting input onto, some of the ideas that we have. But this is an important one as we've concluded our strategic planning for CICP. It's one of the big issues that we've identified as really in need of more attention.
Yeah, and there was a great announcement last week on the funding side anyway, that the governor announced some new funding opportunities with Elevate Ventures. They're going to start a $100 million fund that I think is focused on just this, on entrepreneur startups. So that's good news for our state.
That's great news. It really is.
Let's take a quick break. This is Off the Record Podcast.
Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with the Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand podcast. Available now at InsideIndianaBusiness.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Off the Record Podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking with Melina Kennedy, CEO of the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership. Melina, prior to taking the top CICP job, I know you had several leadership positions, but one of them, one of the companies that you worked with was Cummins, and you had a great experience there, I know. Cummins is another example of a great entrepreneurial success story. It started in Columbus and then grew into a large global company. What did you learn at Cummins that might have prepared you for what you're doing today?
Well, I have to say just briefly, I was there for 11 years and I just absolutely love that company. The fact that it's global, it's innovative, it was such a great place to be and I learned so much. And so to your question, I learned so much. I think one thing that I learned from my boss, Tom Linebarger, who was former CEO, just his energy and passion for leadership development and just really helping making sure that people in leadership positions were really reflecting on their own behavior, their own ability to lead, how their teams are impacted. That really helped me with my own leadership journey. That, and then secondly, he and the leadership team and the board really were focused on the future and strategy. And you can just see how Cummins changed over the last 5 or more years, focusing primarily on diesel technology, which is still really important all over the world, but understanding that the technology is moving and then moving into hydrogen and hydrolyzers and electric. It's amazing. And so it's a good reminder, and I saw it firsthand, that you got to be thinking out ahead, not just about what today's issues are.
Remind me the division that you ran while you were there, the last job that you held.
The last job I held was in the compliance. I helped stand up a new regulatory compliance organization. It had been scattered through the company previously, and we wanted a separate independent organization. So that was a really tall order and a great opportunity to make it better. I will tell you the most fun I had at Cummins was when I led their global rail business. A lot of people don't know that Cummins makes engines for locomotives, and that was a blast. In fact, one of my favorite moments ever was I got a chance to ride in the cab of the Siemens locomotive when it was being tested there's a federal test track in Colorado, and that was pretty cool. So I'm not sure I'll ever be able to replicate that, but it was a wonderful experience.
Where did the job take you in terms of internationally? What were some of the more interesting stops along the way?
So many great places. I spent some time in Poland when I was in the rail business. We had some customers there. Africa, different places in Africa, South Africa and Morocco, all over Europe, China and India multiple times. In fact, I was supposed to go to China to Wuhan in, if you can believe it, February of 2020.
Wow.
So I missed a bullet, so to speak, there.
Yeah.
But it's incredible, and I love just learning other cultures and how people work. And I really had that opportunity with a company with 60,000 people all over the world. It was great.
Well, I know you've been deeply involved in our city and state sports and tourism business, serving for 7 years as the president of the Capital Improvement Board, a term that I think just ended late last year. Remind us what the CIB does and all that you were responsible for in that job.
Well, the CIB Capital Improvements Board, I was president of that for 7 years. That really went by fast. And it's a very unique structure that Indianapolis, well before my time, created, I think with great forethought. It is essentially an organization that owns and operates all of our major sporting and convention entities. So unlike other places where they might have a separate organization to run convention and a separate one for sports, these come together and it allows us to really plan together and really make a great impact. It was really a great honor to be able to be part of a very bipartisan team, state and local, to help secure the long-term deal with the Pacers and to do the upgrade, so to speak, of Cambridge, which, the Unity Plaza and just the whole feel of the experience when you're at Cambridge is so incredible. And it was really great to be a part of that. It was hard. There were times that we weren't all on the same page and we were trying to work through tough issues. But just like Indianapolis, everybody, and just like Indiana, we all came together, and it's a really great outcome.
Would that have been the most meaningful project during those 7 years? Were there any others that kind of stick out in your mind as big events or big accomplishments during your 7-year term?
I think that really stands out, and that led to other things such as the community getting behind getting the NBA All-Star Game, which was huge. And that was also not without drama. You may or may not recall that we were supposed to have it in 2021. So right. That ended up being fortuitous that it got pushed back, and was an incredible experience in 2024. So I think those were the most memorable. But I will say just everything about it, including just the day-to-day, making sure that the funding was in place, that planning was in place, making sure conventions were cared for and retained. You can lose those easily. That kind of stuff, the basics, was also a lot of fun and really exciting too.
In terms of deal making and pro sports, of course, you can't read the IBJ without noticing, and many other outlets, noticing that pro soccer is on a lot of people's minds, taking a lot of space these days in people's thoughts and leaders' thoughts. So what do you think about the city's effort to attract an MLS team or expansion opportunity? And what do you give our city's chances on that front?
I'm not the best person on the chances. I will say that we should do everything we can to position ourselves to be able to have an MLS presence here. It would be tremendous for the city, and for the legacy of sports leadership that we have. Having an MLS team would be an amazing chance for continuing on that legacy. So I'm excited about it. I know it's, there's a lot of debate about sites and whatnot, and those are the things that oftentimes with leadership, those are hard things you got to manage through. But at the end of the day, when you keep your eye on the ball of getting an MLS here, that'll be great for everyone.
I'm hopeful that everybody can come together as one group. As you mentioned earlier, Indianapolis is known for working together, and I'm hopeful that there's an opportunity here in the short run to get everybody on the same page and all pushing together, because I agree, ultimately that's what we want. We want more sports, which has driven our city forward, and that would be another great opportunity. Well, one thing most of our Indiana 250 honorees seem to agree on is the importance of mentors and advancing their careers. And have there been some mentors that have been really important in your career development?
There have. I feel really fortunate. 3 briefly. When I first got here, my first job out of law school, Frank Sullivan was a judge on the Indiana Supreme Court and just gave me a chance and really helped me learn to be a better writer, thinker, analyst of legal opinions. I'm very grateful for that. And then, of course, my time with Bart Peterson, got to see firsthand how someone could really lead and make big change, whether it's charter schools or the airport, just learning from him. And that was a tremendous opportunity. And then the last 11 years with Tom Linebarger at Cummins, I just have to say his mentorship of me really was life-changing, because he really spent time and leaned in on, as I shared earlier, leadership development, being authentic, calling yourself out, where you need to improve, just the importance of relationships. And just I feel really lucky that I had the opportunity to have people like that in my life mentor me, and I'm very, very grateful.
Those are 3 big names in Indiana, and it sounds like you are very fortunate to be working with some great people, so good for you. Well, Melina, we've made it to Off the Record Speed Round,
all right.
where you try to give me some quick answers to a series of questions. You ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, favorite movie?
I can't give you one because my kids tell me I'm the worst ever at picking movies.
Is that
I mean, literally.
Okay, how about favorite place to vacation?
Greece.
Favorite musical artist?
Elton John.
Another good one that I like. What's the first thing you do in the morning?
Make coffee, quickly followed by reading the paper and running.
I hope it's the IBJ that you're reading.
Absolutely.
And I hear that you're in a book club, so this next one might be easy for you. What's the title of the last book you read?
The last book we read was called Between Two Kingdoms, and really good book about a woman's journey with cancer. I'd recommend it.
What food can you not live without?
Greek food.
I was thinking that might be your answer. Your favorite sport?
Ice skating.
Best advice you ever received?
Nothing great happens alone. Build a team and work together.
Advice for a young person who wants to become a leader?
Keep an open mind. None of the jobs I had today or in the last 3 times I even heard of when I was a kid. Never heard of deputy mayor, never heard of Cummins or CICP.
So don't be too nervous if you don't know what you want to do. Is that part of it?
It is. It really is.
Melina, thank you for joining me on the Indiana 250 podcast, and thank you for all that you're doing for Central Indiana and for the state as a whole.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks to the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership CEO, Melina Kennedy, for our conversation today. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.